The meeting this evening will be a live stream meeting to the public. A recording of the public part of the meeting will be available on the council's website within 24 hours of the meeting. This is the first occasion remote officers will be joining the meeting. Would remote participants please use their hands up icon in Teams to indicate they have a question. Please turn on your camera and microphone when addressing the committee and off when you're not speaking. In-person attendees will be required to wear face masks on entry to the building and meeting room, but may remove them once seated. Would members and officers please remember to switch off their microphone when on when speaking and off when they have finished speaking. Please speak directly into the microphone. And switch off mobile phones or put on silent mode. It's got scan the NHS COVID-19 contact tracing QR poster on the entrance to this council chamber. Right, I'll go through any apologies for absence tonight?
Yes, Chair. Apologies from Councillor Agley and Abbas Hussain.
Minutes of the 28th of July. You read those? You approve them? There's a correct record. Section 106 of the Local Government Finance Act 1992. Any disclosures?
None that have been made aware of, Chair.
Any disclosures of interest tonight? Councillor Hussain?
Just want a clarification, because I believe last time when this item came up, I think Stephen said to me that because they're in the Inspire Sport Village, even though I sit on their board, but the applicant is council, and I think the advice I was given was that the council is the applicant. I don't have to declare an interest and leave. Normally, if Inspire was the applicant, then I would do that. Is that correct, Stephen?
Yes. Thank you, Chair. How have you, I think from last time I asked a question, have you really had any involvement with the actual application itself?
Yeah, not at all.
No. Therefore, I would say, I think that's what I said last time, it's personal because of sitting on that board, but is it prejudicial? And if it was prejudicial, that would mean leaving the chamber. But I would say because of that answer you've just given to that question, it doesn't fall into that prejudicial category, because the test is for it to be prejudicial. What would members of the public think looking in? And if you're saying that you're not involved in the item at all, even though you sit on the board, my view for you to consider is that therefore wouldn't be a prejudicial interest and you can therefore remain.
Thank you.
They're a personal interest.
Yes, because I sit on the board, but I had nothing to do with the application.
Not a prejudicial interest. Okay, no, that's noted. Any urgent business tonight?
None, Chair.
References for committees and other bodies. So we'll go straight on to the agenda tonight, and we've got people who've indicated their right to speak, and that's from the Inspire Sports Village. Councillor Wynne is present. Toby Malloy is virtual, and Paul Manning from the Napier Gateway. So I'm going to go the other way around, bottom to top, 10987. So we'll start with Inspire Sports Village, Butterfield Green Road. Page 88. Ms. Graham Dorr.
Thank you very much, Chair. So consideration of the report is set out across pages 88 and 105 of the agenda, and the proposal seeks plan permission for the erection of a two-storey infill and two-storey side extension to facilitate the creation of a library, flexible office space and additional fitness and leisure facilities. As reported last time, a site notice and press notice were issued. 6 representations were made, predominantly objecting to the development were received, and the comments are set out in Appendix 3 of the report considered therein. I'll just run through the slides quickly as it has been before. So here is the site plan showing the location of the particular development there outlined in red. And here is a closer version of that. You can see the side extension on the sort of left-hand side, and then just in the existing recess part of the building, the two-storey front extension. Here is a closer look at the ground floor plan. Again, the two areas to be extended there in yellow, orange. and then the first floor, the library being double height there. Here are some elevations of the building, and then here is a CGI image showing what it would look like in situ, and then a wider shot just here, also more clearly seeing the two-story side extension to the side of the development. So as previously, there's no update to the report, and the recommendation is therefore for members to approve the application. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thanks, Graham. So we'll go on to Councillor Wynne. You've indicated your right to speak, and you've got up to 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. I have to start by saying this one I found a very difficult application to consider. On balance, and it's very much on balance, I want to raise an objection to this development. If I go back, first of all, to the original report, I might say that the new report I found significantly more concise and in some ways much clearer than the original, so I commend the officer for that. On the original report, it's very clear from the officer's report and from the subsequent one that this, as a mixture of offices, a couple of new studios and a library extension, they're not good. They're not a good mix from a ward councillor's point of view. Moving the library from within the village to the sports centre is a retrograde step. It will result in the library not being as well used by the local community, and I believe very strongly that that will be a bad result for my ward. The main objection, both from the people that wrote in and from me, is about parking at the Inspire. Already, when there is a major event on, particularly things like swimming galas and so on, parking is a really serious problem. There is a proposal here to extend the parking a little bit, but not very much. Even today, when I went up personally to have a look at where the Active Newton offices are currently at Wigmore House, there are still significant numbers of cars in the car park. Unlike visitors to this centre who are normal users of the centre, those cars will be permanently all day at Inspire and will significantly add to the car parking problem. The other points that perhaps you might like to consider are the fact that Active Newton are responsible for the libraries. The staff at Wigmore at Stopsley Library have frankly not even been consulted. I went there and personally asked them, and I got one of my fellow councillors to do the same. They have not been consulted. The library extension that's being put on here is in fact the same size as the library in Stopsley. The staff made it clear that they need more space. That's not being allowed for. In addition, if you look at the design is significantly flawed. The cafe area is there and it's clear, and the cafe area has always been well used in Inspire. There is immediate access from the cafe area at the moment to outdoor seating when the weather's nice. You look at the new design, you can't get to the outside from the cafe, you have to go through the library. It is completely ridiculous. The other issue, and this is not so much a planning issue, I suppose, but I would be remiss if I didn't say so as a ward councillor. The fact that Active Newton is moving from Wigmore Hall to offices within Inspire is a very strange move. I say strange move because in practice, Luton Borough Council is itself building this, using money, using capital at a time when we're working to an emergency budget. I've been told through separate inquiries of officers that the reason why Active Luton wishes to move from Wigmore Hall is because the offices are substandard and that the building requires refurbishment work. That would be perfectly acceptable were it not for the fact that the same officers have told me that as and when Active Luton move to their new offices here in Inspire, that the building will in fact be refurbished and will be used for special needs pupils. It is a crazy way to implement changes to Inspire, which will be to the detriment of users, largely because of the parking. In addition, there are at the moment nonsensical plans to extend the cemetery across to the other side of Butterfield Green Road. The consequence of that will be to further exacerbate the parking issues in that area. And I think that on balance, and it's very much on balance, I therefore have to say that as a local councillor, I think this is ill-considered and ill-timed. Those may not be planning reasons, but I would actually be not carrying out my duty as a local councillor for not pointing that out to members of this committee. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. You're very quiet, so I think you've just called me in. But good evening, councillors. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of the applicant. My name is Toby Malloy. I'm the Project Design and Delivery Manager in Property and Infrastructure, and I'm an architect by profession. The scheme presented before you today is, in our view, policy compliant and provides significant gains in sports and social infrastructure for the residents of Luton and the adjoining communities. Inspire has been, by and large, a successful development, and this modest expansion combined services makes a good hub for community benefits. It provides space for sports, community uses, improves things like the viewing gallery for people to watch their family and friends swim. It also centrally locates the staff of Active Luton to the heart of their operation, which comes with many efficiencies and benefits to their operation. And it also relinquishes Wigmore Hall for potential conversion for other pressing council needs. The design is in accordance with policies, and we've approached this design with something that simplifies the high quality building that already exists. It's unfortunate that historic conditions on this site have remained outstanding, but they do not materially affect the application that's presented before you today, in my opinion. The application was approved before my time at the council, and I was not aware that any conditions were outstanding. Since submitting this, we have become aware of them, and there were 7 that were outstanding. We've already responded to 1 and had that approved on providing additional overflow car parking. 2 more are due to be submitted shortly for approval, and we're currently working on the remaining 4 that need a bit more time and effort to prepare and submit. So we wish to reassure the committee that my team takes conditions seriously and understand their importance and relevance in discharging them in accordance with any decision notice issued. So this is an unfortunate historic issue that we are and will continue to deal with, but we wish to express our apologies for these not being dealt with in the correct time. And just to touch upon a couple of the concerns raised by Councillor Wynne, we understand that parking has been an issue at Inspire, and Active Luton have recently introduced some automatic number plate recognition parking controls, which have apparently improved the use of their car park as it was being used by non-centre users. So that has improved the parking situation there, and we've put these proposals forward whilst discussing it with our colleagues in highways to make sure they're satisfied. The comment that the library needs to be bigger, we've discussed this with Active Luton, and they feel content that the library is an appropriate size. We understand the concerns around the cafe not having a direct access to outside space. It's something we did consider in the design, but working with Active Luton, they have a more modern and cohesive approach to their libraries in the future, and see that lots of these spaces blend and interact, and it actually provides an opportunity for more people to be exposed to libraries and the benefits that they bring their communities. It may be a little bit further away from the village than the existing one, but the footfall through the front door of Inspire is great, and it gives the opportunity to those people to get easy access to a library as well. I appreciate the comments on Wigmore Hall. Whilst it isn't really a planning consideration as to what would happen to Active Luton's old office, Wigmore Hall is in a poor state, and the council is currently working on a funding bid to the Department of Education for some children's services related works, which would bring capital in from central government to help refurbish and bring that building back into use. The original capital bid for Inspire assumed that Wigmore Hall would be disposed of as part of our asset management plan to reduce running costs of expensive and old assets such as Wigmore Hall, to help fund this as an efficiency and cost saving. So just to conclude, we feel the application should be granted to provide additional services and facilities to the residents of Luton, and we feel the scheme presented before you today is in accordance with local and national planning policies, also strongly aligns with our corporate 2040 vision. Thank you very much.
Can I just be clear about the overflow car park? Whereabouts is it on the map?
So the overflow car park is actually dealt with under one of the separate planning conditions from the original approval. Yeah, where the hand is moving now is it runs down on the grass area, and it is a grasscrete solution. So it would look like the grass with the plastic web interwoven in between.
Yeah, so it's parking that's not already there.
It's not already there, and it would only be used for when the galas are on and the additional parking's required.
Thank you, Chair. Just in relation to the positioning of the library, in relation to the cafe, the canteen, is that something that could be made, I guess, like a reserved matter? For you mentioned that that's something that's under consideration, the positioning of the canteen and the library. Is that something that could be made a reserved matter to come back or be decided by the planning officer at a later date once that's been considered? Because that is a concern of mine as well. The position, as somebody who's sort of used libraries quite a lot previously, the idea of having people walking through the library with their coffees and so on, it just doesn't. I think it could impact. I agree with Councillor Wynne. I think it could impact the use of the library. What are your thoughts on that?
Is that? I mean, is that a question for our planning officers or the applicant?
Oh, my apologies. Yeah. Actually, yeah, that would be more a question for the officer. Actually, well, my apologies.
Someone want to answer it now?
Yeah.
Sorry. Thing again.
Thank you, Chair. I would ask Councillor Bridgen just on the basis, not on the basis, sorry, what would be the intention for that to be reviewed? What would be the end, sort of the end game? What process would you like to see go through before that? Because theoretically, it is something we could look to do via condition, notwithstanding the approved details, etc., etc. But we'd need to have a very clear instruction as to what we were supposed to be exploring, because it may well be that this is the best solution. Obviously, it's been worked through from our colleagues in design.
Okay.
Good question. I mean, I think it'd be good to see what other, if this has been considered or is being considered, the positioning of the library and so on. what alternative designs have been investigated and just to obviously consider the concerns about the use of the library.
More of a question to the applicant.
Yeah.
Do you want to respond, Toby?
Yeah, thank you. It was quite a long time ago that we looked at the different options for it, so I might not be fully well versed on what we did, but we did look at a few different options, and we've been working with Active Luton on some different ideas for libraries, and they do see them as much more active and interactive spaces where the coffee shop and the actual library furniture itself is a lot more blended. It perhaps in practice wouldn't be laid out exactly as we've shown on that plan. You'd probably see the books and the seating areas of the cafe more intertwined. So it's more like your Costa Coffee in a Waterstones kind of atmosphere, which is a bit more relaxed and you feel a bit more comfortable to have a bit more noise and talk in a library than is perhaps the historic perception of what a library is. So the internal arrangement of how that furniture is laid out is something we'd probably review anyway as we went through into detailed design before implementation. So that could mean that the coffee shop and the library do become more blurred, but the coffee bar would probably stay where it is because of where the existing services and back of house is to the main coffee bar. Don't know if that's answered your question, but we have considered other ones, but there is some flexibility to play around with how the furniture and that's laid out, but I'm not sure that would be a planning matter per se.
If I may to follow, please. Oh, sorry, Councillor Bridgen.
No, go ahead, Graham. Cheers.
Sorry. Thank you. Through you, Chair. I think Toby's quite correct in that we are somewhat straying away from what we can sort of materially consider in planning. Some of the plans that we see here, making alterations to where desks are supposed to be, for example, would not require planning permission, if that makes sense. At the same time, we need to be careful about how we're asking the applicants or the operator, I guess, in this particular instance, how they want to arrange things. As Toby's already pointed out, Active Luton have asked for it to be laid out this way, and we would be in danger of planning interjecting in the operation of a business or an operation of an operator when they have decided this is the best way for them. I guess in short, it's something that could be considered and theoretically approved now, and then could be changed at a later date away from planning if the issues arose. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks for that. Councillor Hussain. And then David.
Ask probably the planning officer or Toby, in terms of the access to the library and the cafe, would that be, from the front entrance, would that be easily accessible so that when you enter in, you could see the both? Have I got that wrong or no?
Yeah, I'll answer that one. That's okay, Graham. It's quite clear as you come in. The front door is where the hand is now, and there's a glazed screen to the right that you can see all the way through. The idea was that the cafe was originally put in a location that was nice and active near the front door and pretty easy for people to grab a coffee as they come in or as they leave from the gym and go and get their frothy coffee or whatever they want to do. But yeah, it means the library is nice and obvious.
So what in terms of the access for the public, taking the library present where it is, this will give more opportunity to the lots of young people that go to the Inspire to be able to access that library town-wide as well as the people living in Stopsley. Have I got that right?
Yeah, I'd need to check what the footfall count is, but I'd be pretty confident in saying that the footfall into Inspire is greater than the footfall outside Stopsley Library, and it probably does capture a larger portion of the Luton population.
Thank you.
Yep, mine's actually a comment, not a question to anybody, so you may want to deal with questions first.
Thank you, Chair. Personally, I support the recommendation for the extension of Inspire, because I believe that there will be a demand in near future, and especially, you know, achieving 2040 vision. I think that is a need. So what I want to know that currently, you know, how many car spaces they've got, and how many, you know, the provisions has been made for how many cars. I just wanted to see, you know, what sort of, you know, plans they've made, and whether there would be any issues in terms of parking. And secondly, whether they've they thought about on the you know, because of Inspire is already very the traffic. So what sort of, you know, have they thought about what sort of, you know, a traffic jam they're going to expect when they're going to expand this Inspire? So just wanted to know the officer's thoughts on it. Thank you.
Through you, Chair, I can confirm the answers to those questions. So there is currently 394 spaces on the existing store. And the overflow car park that was determined earlier on this year provides for an additional 134. As Toby had already said, that was during sort of extreme areas. Now, one of the other things that we'll be dealing with in due course, and you'll see it here in the conditions, is a travel plan, which will assist but only in the current operation, but also the expanded operation, and then dealing with the employees of Active Luton who would be coming across to this site. So there are a series of measures that have already been put in place, and more that will be coming in place to help reduce the overall provision of the need for parking, have people coming to and from the site, and all of that to say as well that our colleagues in the local highways authority have also accepted the position of the scheme as it currently stands. Thank you, Chair.
Any further questions? David, your comment, please.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. I think the first thing I want to say is we ought to remember that what we are called upon to do this evening is to decide upon the planning application that is in front of us, and not actually to consider whether we want to try and change it. Because if in fact you want to get it changed, then the only sensible way forward is to defer it rather than decide it this evening. The second thing I have to say is that it was deferred last time because after 11 years, the applicant had failed to comply with a number of conditions that were attached to the original application. That, for me, is yet another argument against the system where local councils are allowed to sit in judgment on their own planning applications. I know it's not illegal, but it really is not a sensible way to deal with planning applications. Nothing that we this evening can do about that, because we're not about to change the law, are we? But it's nonsense. And local councils, Luton Council, should never be allowed to sit in judgment on its own planning applications. Moving on, nothing to do with planning, I know, but it is a disgrace that the library staff have still not been consulted at a time when the council is planning to move their place of work, and nothing that we can do about that either. But there are things that we can do something about. Now, since the deferment, we've all had an opportunity to look at the whole scheme in much more detail. And one of the things that occurs to me is that, first of all, it isn't really clever to remove permanently the outside catering space. It makes the cafe much more attractive, and in any case, around the town, there are nowhere near enough outside catering spaces. I appreciate that they're not much use in February, but they are if you get a half decent summer. And I'm very reluctant to put my hand up and vote for removing the outside catering space here. Secondly, I think I would feel pretty uncomfortable using the library when people were wandering through with cups of coffee and jam donuts in their hands. You don't get that in Waterstones where they've got coffee shops. It doesn't happen. They are sufficiently separate for the two to function quite comfortably. And in any case, I don't think they serve messy things like jam donuts. So all in all, I'm finding it very difficult to convince myself that I should put my hand up to vote for this planning application. And unless I hear something really convincing between now and the time when we vote, I'm afraid I'm going to have to vote against the recommendation.
You're David. The reason it was deferred was to see what could be done about actually the previous planning conviction.
Yeah, but we still have no information about when they're going to return the old sports centre buildings into public open space, which is what the condition demanded they did. No one's telling us when that's going to happen, and it still hasn't been complied with.
Yeah, I mean, the applicant, Toby Malloy, did say that he's working to resolve the outstanding conditions. He's already resolved one, and he intends to resolve all the others. If you just want to confer, Toby, that's correct.
What exactly does that mean? Are they thinking about it? Are they talking about it? When are they going to demolish the building?
We'll ask him. Toby, you heard that question from Councillor Franks.
Yeah, well, the Luton Regional Sports Centre has been demolished and the building has been put back to public open space. The issue is that the car park still remains and something needs to be done with that. So we're looking at different options for it because it's one of our larger parks. It would benefit from potential parking up there, and there was a consideration to whether we perhaps reinstate that car park as a car park for users of the Stopsley Common. But we're also in discussion with parks about whether we should just turn that back into pure open space and make it grass, or whether we should plant it up as a new area of woodland. So there are discussions that are ongoing about that, and we hope to conclude those shortly about what the right way forward is. But the council is committed to still putting it right. It's just using the time to reflect on what the right thing to do now 11 years has elapsed. But the building has been demolished and it is back to public open space. So the bulk of the condition has been done, but it's not been done to its to the full letter of the condition.
Okay, Councillor Hussain was next. I've got you down.
I'm very disturbed with what's happening. Anyone sits on a committee, regardless of whether they're actually involved in the application for this plan, they are sitting on this committee, and I just think it doesn't look very good that they should be involved in this particular application. I just feel very uncomfortable about it. And I would like to make a comment about the whole application as well, please.
Saying only needed to declare a personal interest, not prejudicial. So that's the advice you got from our solicitor. That's good enough for me. It may be not good enough for you, but I think you've just got to accept it. Comment.
Can I just say that in terms of there were a number of issues that was already, said, and colleagues have made a parking as an issue. I mean, I, for unfortunate reason, do visit that area on a daily basis. Very rarely I miss it. Not the actual, the Inspired, but the cemetery. And I have never, ever, even today I was there about 4:30 this afternoon, seen that, in terms of the parking, the car park is only 2/3 full. 1/3 is always not being utilized. I mean, there are issues that have been talked about, which is probably nothing to do with the planning, whether or not, and I agree in terms of the council not doing the planning condition in terms of the sports centre, which was knocked down and not restored to as an open space. And that really is really regrettable that it has taken longer than it should have been. And I made that very strong point the last time, that the council ought to be given an example to everybody else rather than itself. But that is not the reason for us to vote against that, because that is not a planning reason other than playing to the people in the area. I mean, this proposal will enhance, in my opinion, in the whole facility of Inspire, not only to give it more access to the people of Luton, but not only just Stopsley, as I said before, but also to the young people and you know, the other people that use that facility, which is heavily used by Lutonians in general, and will be able to access the library, which they probably not go into if, you know, where the present library is. So I think in terms of that, and the other thing that, you know, having the Wigmore Hall for the children with special needs, you know, rather than putting them 50 or 60 mile away from Luton, they would have a facility within Luton, which is what every member of this council wants, so they can have access to their families. Now, that would not be such a bad thing if the government does the capital funding, but that is not an issue to, you know, in terms of the either support or refusal of this. So I would say to colleagues, take into consideration that this will have an access, the library will have more access, and it will enhance the facilities that we've got, which is a 5-star facilities in Luton, and we should be all proud of it, because there's not many places which has a 50-meter pool, just as we've got in the Inspire. And that belongs to the people of Luton, because it was funded by the taxpayer of Luton.
Thank you, Councillor Campbell. You wish to make a comment on the application?
Please, Chair. This thing about whether you can talk in application that you're involved with the organisation. I, over the years, have sat on this committee and I've raised this point, and it's always coming up. It's a grey area. It's a this, it's a that, it's a this. As might say, the public will always look at what we are doing.
Please. Can you, if you want, make a comment on the application, not another member of this council, please?
I'm just saying, I am very disappointed, right? Also, this application, years ago, we built on a playing field with this swimming pool. We're supposed to have knocked down the old centre. And what is it, 11, 12 years now?
It's been knocked down.
I wish you would let committee members speak and stop butting in, please.
I'm trying to enlighten you.
No, you're being out of order. Please. I am talking now, right? This has been going on for years. I used to play on that playing field where the swimming pool is now. I used to play cricket there, right? We need that cricket pitch to be replaced. And if we knock the old place down, we need this facility for cricket or football, whatever, for sport to be replaced. And it's 11, 12 years now, and we still haven't got that. I am very disappointed with this council.
Thank you. I just wanted to say, was concerned last time because the conditions hadn't been complied with. And I said, we have to set a good example. And I understand that some of the conditions have been complied with, but not all of them. And I stand by that. We need to set a good example. And I think if there's an application coming from the council, then it should be perfect. If we're considering it, I mean, I take on board what's being said about whether we should even consider such applications, but we are where we are and we are considering them. And I think the application that comes before us should have everything that we were concerned about last time resolved. And if it's not, I wonder whether we can defer it again or vote against it so that Luton Council will start putting complete and full applications before us that don't have parts that are missing and that are going to be considered in the future.
We need your advice on this. I think you did say last time that, well, you remember what was said last time about the application that's in front of us? Has it any bearing on the previous conditions that may not have been met? Is it a valid reason to defer or refuse?
Thank you, Chair. Graham may want to interject at some point as well, but I stand by what I said last time in terms of the conditions are rightly imposed on planning consents where councils are the applicants, even though we can't actually take ourselves to court to prosecute for a breach of condition notice. That's the first thing I said last time round. In terms of whether there's been a breach of planning control, if that hinders the ability to make a decision on a further application, it can be a material consideration. Indeed, it could be that you can't deal with X because Y hasn't been dealt with. We don't know exactly how that's going to unfold, and so on and so forth. That could be the situation. My understanding of the committee report, and this is where Graham may need to interject, is the conditions that remain outstanding relating to parking are conditions that can A, be reimposed in relation to this application, and also they're conditions that require the actual whole development, if you like, to be in place to determine how those conditions in terms of travel plans and so on will then actually be set out and approved as a condition as part of this application. I think that's as much as I can say on that latter point, and I don't know if Graham or Head of Planning want to interject on that latter point. Thank you, Chair.
So through you, Chair, the point I said previously at the previous meeting was that as far as all the conditions that remain outstanding at the moment, and they are being whittled down over the course of the year, none of them relate to the actual building to which this development would be attached. For all intents and purposes, they relate to a different site, albeit within the original site of the original application. But they are on the other side. None of the conditions that remain outstanding relate to this particular development, now known as the Inspire. The conditions that remain outstanding, as I reported last time, do not preclude the determination of this application, and they do not comprise valid reasons for refusing this scheme because they do not relate to the material acceptability or otherwise of this particular development at the time. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks. David Frank's next, and then yourself.
Of course.
I'm not sure you're going to thank me for raising this, but I have been in correspondence with the monitoring officer over another issue. And as a result of the correspondence, he has emailed me this afternoon to say that he is going to put out a reminder that all members who are directors of outside organisations should always declare an interest when that organisation's business comes up for discussion at a council meeting.
Is that a personal interest or a personal and a prejudicial interest?
Well, he didn't specify. He's saying they should always declare an interest. It's for the individual to decide whether that interest is merely personal or whether it is also prejudicial. But it is always for the individual to decide whether to declare an interest. The responsibility for that decision, whether or not to declare, does not lie with the officer who's offering advice. The responsibility lies with the individual member, as Stephen has frequently reminded us when he's been offering advice.
What Councillor Hussain did at the start of the meeting, when it was called over, any declarations of interest, Councillor Hussain declared a personal interest as a member of the Active Luton Board.
Okay.
And it's duly recorded. And online.
Thank you. Well, I just wondered if it's the case that it's not a planning objection, really, the fact that the conditions have not been complied with. That can influence someone, though, can't it? If you're not happy about the way that Luton Council have presented this application and hasn't got its own house in order effectively, which isn't really appropriate if we expect other applicants. I know it's probably not people in this room, but it's not really appropriate where we expect other applicants to do so properly. And I am finely balanced also, and that. If that's not sufficient to object, then I think that maybe the library being smaller, which I don't think is acceptable at all for the library to be made smaller than what it is at the moment. And if there is this throughway really with people going through with their coffee, I agree completely. The sort of comparison to Waterstones is not the same. They are kept separate. Then they are planning concerns, aren't they? The library being smaller. Would you say? And the outside space being lost?
I thought the planning officer did indicate the internal arrangements were not a matter that we could consider. Am I right?
Thank you, Chair. Internal arrangements is not something that can be considered. In this particular instance, the scheme has been designed by those who will be operating it, and they have determined this is A, the most appropriate size for the library, and B, the most appropriate layout for that particular library and cafe facility. Members would be in danger of inserting their own belief above those who would actually be operating it, given the current conversation that's occurred. Thank you, Chair.
Well, I hear what's being said, but I'm concerned really because we're able to take a view about whether we think something should be a 3-bedroom extension or a 2-bedroom extension. And so I would have thought you could have a say in whether you think that it's sufficient for the library to be smaller. But surely losing the outside space is a planning consideration that can be taken on board. Would I be wrong or would I be right?
I think we covered that. Are you on about the demolition of the old sports centre and the car park?
No, we're losing the outside space next to the cafe now. That's being removed, isn't it? To access it, you've got to go through the library now. I mean, I feel uncomfortable with this. I'll be absolutely honest. I'm either going to abstain or vote against it. At the moment, I don't feel I can support it.
I think access to the cafe is through the main entrance, isn't it, from the car park?
The access to the outside space, I understand, is through
access to the outside.
Yeah.
The previous seating space
Through the library.
Outside. The access would be through the cafe. Yes.
And I just really would need advice on whether it's actually a planning condition that I can oppose on. I really don't agree with this application, not everything not being complete and signed off before it comes before us. I don't think it's appropriate at all. And I want to make that loud and clear. So I don't know whether I should abstain or vote against. It might be academic.
Yeah. Toby, the applicant?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to clarify the outside space does still exist, and Stopsley Library is 160 square metres net internal area, and the proposed library is 163. So a modest increase of 3 square metres. It is not smaller.
Still smaller.
Yeah, it's smaller, but not small.
No, it's bigger by 3 square metres in net internal area. So if you deduct off the toilets from the existing library, the space for the actual library and books is bigger.
Well, I'm sorry, we got told it was smaller.
Bigger.
So who's presenting this? We got told the library would be smaller. So, well, I'm confused. The information we had previously was that the library space would be smaller.
That's straight from the applicant.
Oh, I apologise. It's smaller than the previous library, the one it's replacing. That's what we were told. The one where the library staff haven't been told that they're losing their jobs, not appropriate either. I understand that that library space is larger than the replacement library space at Inspire. That's what we were told. Is that not correct?
Well, Tony, would you say it again, please? There seems to be some confusion.
The existing Stopsley Library has a net internal area of 160 square metres. The proposed library at Inspire has a net internal area of 163 square metres. So it's a tiny bit bigger, but by and large exactly the same.
So we were told something incorrect to start with. I'm finding it difficult to hear. It's bad reception also, but I clearly heard that the library space would be smaller. But anyway, so be it.
Graham, did you want to come in?
I think, thank you, Chair. I think Toby's clarified what I was going to suggest, just to say no officers reported the library spaces was smaller, just to make that clarification. And if members are concerned about the size of the external seating area, which again you can see on the plan here is there, then that would be appropriate to apply a condition in the same way you would a landscaping scheme, for instance, to ensure that that detail could be enhanced if indeed Active Luton consider that appropriate to do so. So there is a recourse to address the external seating area that members seem to be concerned with. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, we've made hard work of this, and I mean, it's already been stated that the outstanding conditions will be remedied. The internal arrangements, I don't think that really is a planning issue. And the overflow car parking will have 134 additional spaces. Okay, I'm going to put it to the vote now. I'll move approval. Is that seconded? All those in favour, please show. Against? 5 against. We need to know what the reasons for refusal are, please. Valid reasons for refusal.
Would you like me to suggest some? Yes. Right, the loss of direct access from the cafe to the outside catering space. The unsatisfactory layout leading to customers from the cafe having to take their food and drink through the library to get to the outside catering space if it is still available. The lack of or loss of the opportunity to improve the library amenities. 3 square metres is clearly not a significant increase. What else can I think of? I think that'll probably do for the moment. Thank you. Clearly, I need to leave the professionals to put the right words around those.
Can I come in, Chairman?
Yeah, I'd like to refer this to council as well, please. How many does it take? Two. Yeah. Three members refer this to council. 4 members refer the application to council. It's our right to do so, Gilbert. Quiet, please. Quiet, please, Gilbert. It's our right to do so. Thank you very much. So it's been referred to council.
Clarify. When we refer it to council, do we, I'm just clarifying, I apologise, I've forgotten. Do we need a majority, or how many do we need in order to refer it to council?
2.
Sorry?
Two members.
2 members. 2
members minimum.
I thought that we brought in that there had to be a majority when it got referred to council.
Obviously, you just told me it's 2.
Yeah, I can look at the constitution, but firstly, before I do that, Chair, a recommendation to full council has to actually have the recommendation that's going from this committee. And at the moment, although Councillor Franks has come up for reasons for refusal, a decision that hasn't yet been voted upon for it to then form a recommendation to full council. But if I may also add, it may be that what Councillor Franks said as reasons for refusal, I'm not sure if the planning officer wants to interject, but it might be that other people are not happy with the original recommendation, for example, that didn't include, as Graham Dorr mentioned, the condition relating to the outside seating area. There may be some people that didn't vote for the original recommendation because they would like to see that condition added. Yes, they could have made an amendment at the time, but I don't know. So we don't yet have a decision of this committee whether it goes to full council or not. So full council need to know what decision, what the recommendation of this committee was. So therefore, if Councillor Franks is putting forward his reasons for refusal, whether the planning officer wants to interject on some of them or not, I've got them written down, but then that would need to be seconded and then that voted upon. And if that's agreed as the reasons for refusal, then Standing Order 68, I believe it is, could be invoked to send that recommendation, i.e. we think this, what do you think, full council, could be invoked. I hope that makes it clear.
So we need to vote on your recommendation for refusal.
Yes,
We need a seconder first.
you need a seconder for that.
I'll second that.
Right.
All those in favour of refusal, please show.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Against?
1, 2, 3.
So that's carried, the refusal.
Chair, can I just check the standing order to refer to, I think it is still the same. Thank you.
I can assure you that two people.
Yeah, I just want to double check because I know there was talk about it.
Agreed at the council as an amendment to the constitution that two members, the constitution committee, as Councillor Frank is 100% right, agreed 2 members. It was 6 before, and we agreed 2 members will go through, and it's gone through the council. That is the constitution of this council.
No, well,
Thank you.
I'm just grateful for clarification. I was just clarifying because there was talk about there being a majority for it to go to full council. I simply said I'm just clarifying. That's what I asked.
End of.
Point
Okay.
of order, please, Chair.
No, sorry. This
put-
item.
The
This item
last
is now
time we
finished.
put 2 items from this committee to full council. One was for the park up where they wanted to drill in for water.
Yeah.
And Wanton Close. It both went to full council. And the solicitor would tell you, once somebody propose it and one second it, that's it. It goes to full council.
Yes. What's the problem? Right, that's it. It goes to council with a recommendation to refuse for the reasons that David has said. If the officers want to add, enlighten or put some stronger reasons for refusal, that's fair enough.
Chair, may I read out 68.1 because it might be useful for everyone here and anyone online and so on. So 68.1 says, where a regulatory committee passes a resolution under powers delegated to the committee by the council, then any 2 members of the committee who were present when the resolution was passed and who voted on the resolution may require that the resolution be submitted as a recommendation to the next suitable meeting of the full council.
Yes.
In such requisition shall be recorded in the minutes of the meeting of the committee. So this committee passed a resolution which was refused. And that resolution is referred to full council.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Should be November probably. Right. Let's go on to the next application. That's Napier Gateway.
Thank you, Chairman. That's me.
53, Clive.
So this is the Napier Gateway site, Kimpton Road, planning application reference number 21/00989/MMAMD. This is a section 73 planning application. seeks to make amendments to planning permission reference 19/00586 to make changes to increase the height of towers A, B and C of residential building B, external design changes, internal changes at ground floor level, and the provision of internal residential amenity space. The application has come to committee as it is seeking amendments to a major planning application and specifically condition 2 of the earlier permission. There is an update on this item which has been provided in the update report. From the update, members will note that there are a couple of minor amendments to the wordings of conditions 1 and 9, and that a new condition 31 is also included to provide a scheme for postage reception. Further, the amount of the monitoring fee has now been clarified at £10,000, and Highways and Central Beds Council are now both satisfied with the proposal. Just in relation to the usual local labour goods and services requirement that we usually impose on schemes set out in paragraph 2 of the original report, this will have to be tailored from the usual standard clause, given that the applicant already has a contractor on site building out phase 1. So we can apply it, but in a slightly reduced format. It can be applied to operations on the site rather than the construction. If you can go to the slides. This is the application site outlined in red, which is known as Napier Gateway, and which is set to the north of Kimpton Road, across from the Hampton by Hilton Hotel. Slide 2. The amendment now is only seeking to make changes to residential building B, which is in the top left of that slide. It's outlined in purple. No changes are proposed to block RBA, which is at the front of the site, has now been built out, the hotel or the medical centre. Next slide, please. This slide shows a typical floor layout, which in this instance is the second floor, and shows the multi-level car park to the north behind the building. Next slide, please. Okay, so we're on to the elevations. This is the southwestern elevation, and the slide shows where it demonstrates the incremental stepping up in height between the towers. And next slide. Sorry about that. No, we did indicate that once it actually wouldn't be back. But okay, this slide demonstrates the comparison between the approved scheme on the left and the proposed on the right, and shows the reintroduction of the double-storey detailing to the tops of the towers, which you can see on the right-hand side. Next slide, please. This slide shows the proposed brick tones that are to be used for each of the towers, including the darker tones, lighter brick tones, and then the Luton grey-red brick tone for the tallest tower. And then we just finish off with a couple of CGIs. The first looking from Kimpton Road, looking north, and the second just taken further along Kimpton Road, looking northeast into the site. Members will see from paragraph 26 of this item that the main planning considerations relate to the environmental impact assessment and whether the alterations have any material impact on the conclusions of this, and consideration of the impacts of the proposed variation to the approved drawing condition. Firstly, the updates to the relevant chapters of the environmental statement have been carefully considered and the conclusions accepted. As such, the amendments now proposed are not considered to materially affect the conclusions of the original environmental statement chapters. In relation to the principal of additional units on the site remains an allocated site for a mixed-use neighbourhood with a significant provision for residential units as set out in policy LLP8 of the local plan. And the implementation of the previous permission has established the principle of a mixed-use development on this site. And it is noted that there is still a requirement for high quality housing in a sustainable location such as this, particularly where the mix of housing meets the council's requirements. Which brings us on to the mix. So in relation to the housing mix, the provision of 76.6% of the total number of new units now proposed are larger 2 and 3 bed units. And this, of course, with the identified need for larger properties set out in the Strategic Housing Market Assessment and the Strategic Housing Land Availability Assessment 2019. This, of course, with policy LLP 15 of the local plan. And in this instance, the proposed mix of housing is considered to be excellent. Further, the current proposal introduces private amenity space for a number of the new units in the form of private balconies, and also communal areas in the form of rooftop gardens on 2 of the towers. When combined with the communal areas of amenity space for residents between the tower elements, this would comply with the council standards for external amenity space. Combined with a number of dual aspect units and the internal amenity space now provided, it's considered to provide a suitable living environment for future occupiers. The current proposal is considered to represent an improvement in design terms over the original consent, with a more natural and measured stepping up in height between the towers, and this increase in height is not considered to adversely impact upon the character and appearance of the area. Along with the other design changes, such as the expression of double height at the tops of the buildings, the changes are considered to represent significant design improvements that would ensure the proposal continues to have a suitable impact on the character and appearance of the area, and of course with the aims of policy LLP 25 to provide high quality design. With regard to the impact on heritage assets, the amendments are not considered to materially affect the character and setting of Hart House or Summerys Castle, and a balancing exercise has been undertaken in the report to weigh the benefits of the proposal against the minor moderate adverse impact on Luton Hoo. The conclusion is reached that the limited additional harm to Luton Hoo is outweighed by the material benefits of the proposal. Additionally, the proposed changes would not materially affect any of the designated conservation areas or impact upon the Vauxhall War Memorial on Kimpton Road. With regard to the impact on neighbouring residential amenity, the additional height of the towers would not adversely impact on this amenity, given the distance of the site to the nearest residential properties. And in relation to highways issues, the Highway Authority has raised no issue with the current proposal, and the highway. With regard to parking, it is recognised that the current proposal would lower the parking ratio from 0.41 in the approved scheme to 0.36 in the proposed. However, this lower parking ratio is still considered to be acceptable for this site, which is in a highly sustainable location in close proximity to Luton Parkway Station, the busway, and a walkable distance into the town centre. The parking ratio would still ensure that parking spaces would be available for the majority of larger units within the scheme, and combined with the on-site car club would provide good transport options for future occupiers. In relation to developer contributions and affordable housing, the applicant has agreed to provide the contributions requested as set out in the report. In terms of affordable housing, paragraph 56 of the report sets out that 10% of the overall floor space would be provided as on-site affordable units, and which continues the principle which has been established on this site. The council's housing team are satisfied with this approach, providing that the affordable offer does not include any studios and that there is a limit on the number of one-bed units, which can be stipulated in any accompanying Section 106 agreement. So in conclusion, as set out in the report, the planning application seeks to vary the wording of condition 2 of the previous permission to make the changes described in the report. Section 73 in respect of the Act requires that local planning authority shall consider only the question of the conditions subject to which planning permission should be granted, and if they decide that planning permission should be granted subject to conditions differing from those subject to which the previous permission was granted, or that it should be granted unconditionally, then they shall grant planning permission accordingly. On this basis of this requirement, it is considered that planning permission can be granted subject to conditions differing from those attached to the original planning permission. It is concluded that the variations proposed would be acceptable, as it would result in an improved design solution, a required housing mix, additional affordable units on site, and developer contributions, whilst not offending any of the development plan policies. For the reasons set out in the report, it is considered that the current development proposal comprises a sustainable and high quality form of development. On that basis, conditional approval of the application is recommended, subject to the completion of a suitable deed of variation. Thank you, Chairman.
Thanks, Clive. Paul Manning, representing the applicants. Are you with us?
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Okay. So you've got up to 5 minutes to speak, and members may wish to ask some questions. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chairman and councillors, for allowing me to speak tonight in support of the planning application for Luton Napier Gateway. I've mentioned I'm Paul Manning from New Steer Real Estate Advisors, and we're the planning consultant for this application. As has already been highlighted, this application is to make some changes to the already approved scheme, and you'll be aware that phase 1 is now well underway and is nearing completion. And you'll be aware from the site visit some of you had recently of the quality of the development and placemaking and build that this application is seeking to carry on that same quality in phase 2 that has already been driven forward in phase 1, and which is phase 2 is subject of these changes proposed with the same build construction team who would move from phase 1 to phase 2. Phase 2 already has a planning permission and is due to commence in early 2022. However, the changes proposed would allow for a much improved final scheme that relates better to the site and surroundings, with an improved architectural response, whilst adding some additional flats to the scheme. The application submission is supported by a suite of documents and drawings which have been assessed by the council and relevant consultees, and no concerns have been raised, hence your officer's positive recommendation for approval, subject to conditions and amendments to the previously signed section 106. The applicant, subject to a positive outcome this evening, has agreed to the requested increases in section 106 contributions for education and waste, with increases of just over £429,000 and £3,000 respectively. This takes the overall section 106 package for this scheme to some £2.5 million of contributions. The application being considered has been subject of a member briefing and pre-application engagement with the planning officers of the council as well, and will result in an extra 77 flats in this phase. And importantly, 59 of these new flats are either 2 or 3 bed. There'll be a slight reduction of 1 bed, 1 person flats, reduced by 3, 21 extra 1 bed, 2 person flats, 17 extra 2 bed, 3 person flats, 26 extra 2 bed, 4 person flats, and also importantly, the introduction of 16 3 bed, 6 person flats, which were not previously in the approved mix. As such, this mix should be welcomed and supported, we hope. The proposal adds some extra floors to the already approved blocks of phase 2 and provides a more considered design rationale with a measured stepped increase in height left to right between each of the blocks of 2 floors, which mirrors the approved and stepped building of phase 1, which steps right to left. It is considered that the design adds to the site and its architectural response and relates better to phase 1. The additional height has also been assessed and is deemed acceptable by statutory consultees. The design also looks at the detailing, and the top of each tower has the same expression of double height and setback, which is a look back to the original consent. The design also aligns vertical stacking of apartments. The scheme provides balconies and terraces on the top 2 new floors of each block of this phase, as well as the necessary increases in bin and bike stores also takes place. The previously approved affordable housing is also increased accordingly from 68 flats to 81 flats across the development. So 13 extra units affordable in this instance. In summary, I would urge you to be able to support your officer's professional opinion and recommendation to approve these changes, and this will then allow this next phase of this important and high quality development, which is the flagship for my client, to come forward and deliver further housing early next year. Thank you for your time.
Thanks for that, Paul. Any questions to the applicant's representative? Councillor Campbell.
Yes. Is it, according to what I've been reading, this block of flats will be able to see right into Luton Hoo?
There has been, it will be seen from part of the grounds of Luton Hoo, but it wouldn't be seen from the property. So what we need to bear in mind is that the original permission is already in place that also has the same viewing corridor. That answers your question.
Okay. Yeah. Well, yeah, there mainly was part of the grounds will be seen, but nothing. The house is too far away. And yeah. Question to the applicant.
Yes, it is. Can I just be sure about something, please? So there's another 77 flats, and there's am I right? There's 2 extra parking spaces. Have I read that properly?
Correct. Yes. So the multi-storey car park to the rear has been tweaked so we can get in 2 extra spaces within the existing multi-storey. So there's no extension or increase to that actual parking unit, but we've actually, by reconfiguration of the spaces, get 2 more spaces in there.
Right, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I just would like to understand that how many dwellings are going to be there in total?
In this phase, there would be 553.
Sorry, say it again?
553 in this phase.
Okay, 553. And in this 553, there will be affordable housing is included?
So yes, so the affordable housing is undertaken across both phase 1 and phase 2, but the affordable housing is located in phase 2. So there's the way the section 106 is worded and previously agreed and is being carried forward this time is that 10% of the floor area of the housing will be for affordable, and that affordable will all be in phase 2, which is this part of the development.
Mm-hmm. And they will be in 1, 2 and 3 bedroom homes, or
it's 1 and 2 bed homes, we believe. Yes.
Okay. Oh, that's all I wanted to know at this stage. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions to the applicant's representative? Questions by members to the planning officer. Councillor Hussain.
Can I ask the planning officer, in light of the traffic that is already there, I don't see that in terms of trying to calm the Kimpton Road itself, there's no contribution in terms of the highways. It's trying to slow the traffic down, because when we visited the site, the speed of the traffic was, pretty high. We were talking about, a huge amount of traffic, lorries as well as cars. So is the developer making any contribution in terms of traffic calming or slowing the traffic down, or restricting some sort of speed limits or slowing the vehicles?
Through you, Chair. In this instance, a highways contribution is not sought because it's only for 77 additional units. But perhaps, Chris, if I can defer to you about potential future improvements on Kimpton Road that you could help us with.
Yes, certainly. Good evening, everyone. I'm Chris Godden, Highway Development Control Manager. Highway Services in Luton Council are currently looking at Kimpton Road and the speeds of traffic along there, and are considering various options, including the section of dual carriageway that's just down from this site as you head towards the Vauxhall gates, looking to make that a little narrower and generally narrowing the overall feel of the road in an effort to reduce speed. So there are plans afoot. In fact, there's some surveys being undertaken at the moment along those lines, but related to this development, there is no contribution towards it, as stated.
Yes, please, to the planning officer.
Yes, I just want to know about the schooling. What sort of provisions has been made for the families? Yeah. Yes.
Okay. So we've got the full amount of the education contribution requested from our colleagues in Education Services was 429,000. So that goes both to the primary and secondary school elements. So it's quite unusual actually to get the full amount of contributions. We usually get viability appraisals submitted with applications, but in this instance, the applicants confirm the full amount.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Sorry, thanks, Chair. Can you tell me, in these 3 blocks of apartment, how many flats are in the total?
In this phase of the scheme, the applicant has just confirmed 553. Yeah, 553. Yes.
Anne?
I've raised the issue of parking before. It's usually met with groans. And I know the argument is always we want fewer cars and it's near the train station and it's near the town. But I think that is just not enough, not sufficient parking spaces for 77 flats. And what's going to happen is people will have cars and there's going to be antisocial behaviour. They're going to try parking where the houses are around there. So I think we're just storing up problems for the future. That's my first comment. And my second comment is I know we're desperate for accommodation in the town, but affordable accommodation, we need houses. Every resident that gets in touch with me wants a house. So I don't think we should be so excited about there's going to be a certain amount of affordable housing, which is a flat. That's my comment.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, let me say that, you know, in terms of the affordable housing contribution, to my mind, you know, it is not only acceptable, but it does take into account the need for a family accommodation. So in that sense, the whole from 1 bedroom to 2 to 3 bedroom is an improvement. And most of this, you know, we ought to be trying to encourage a quality, you know, high end of the market as well as affordable housing. So I think in that sense, it is a good proposal. Also, I would strongly support it. My concern is the speed of the traffic, and the highway managers have told me that they are looking at it. So in that sense, I will support because we are trying to get a decent accommodation, and sometimes, you know, we need to be looking, trying to get a good quality apartments in the town, and this is a very good start in my opinion, and I will strongly support that.
Yeah, I remember on the road, we were trying to cross the road and I was kind of your escort, waiting for a gap in the traffic to usher us both across, because the traffic was pretty fast, but that'll be resolved. And I don't know if you know this site, Anne, but at the far end is the Red Road development, which is all houses and flats. There's about a third of the development.
I do know the site because I remember objecting previously. I do know the site. Thank you, Dave.
Yeah.
I was asked a question and I answered the question.
Thank you, Chair. I think I welcome the better mix of flats and the increased number of affordable housing, and also the Section 106 contributions without the viability assessment. Those are the positives. I am concerned about the reduced ratio of parking to property situation. Obviously, we discussed that previously at length on lots of other applications, and you know, obviously it's not a matter that we can necessarily reject on, because, you know, there's not a minimum number of spaces, there's a maximum, so that's fine. And one of my other concerns is, you know, it's been alluded to, not only the speed of the traffic along Kimpton Road, but the increased quantity of traffic as well. You've got Kimpton Road leading to Vauxhall Way, a very busy road heading to the M1, and the other route to the M1, which is Gypsy Lane. And I'm a bit concerned about the impact that's going to have on the road infrastructure there. In balance, I think I'm still supportive of this, but I just do want to mention these concerns.
Right. Now, I don't know, is it Hayward Tyler, the factory on Kimpton Road near Gypsy Lane? It's on Kimpton Road. Whatever factory it is, they're going to knock it down and build a block of flat there. Right. Now, originally, they wanted to build it at a certain height, and it was reduced to 16 floors because they said it will be seen from Luton Hoo. So they've reduced one block of flats to 16 floors. According to the amount of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom flats, you could house about 2,500 people in that 16-floor block of flats. We've got all these other tall buildings now that's going to be seen from Luton Hoo, when we already reduced one to 16 floors, and we're increasing these now. Can you see that? I'm sorry, I've driven along that and looking at the blocks of flats there, I think in 10, 20 years, there are going to be a lot of problems. We had this from the 60s and things when we built flats to try and house people, and they became terrible places. I think we're building something for the future that's going to be terrible, and I won't be supporting it.
Chair, I could probably just help with that last point about Luton Hoo. So Hayward Tyler was reduced from 21 stories down to 16, but it's viewed in a different plane from Luton Hoo. Where Hayward Tyler sits, it popped above the ridgeline from the parkland in Luton Hoo. This site does sit on a different plane, so it doesn't have the same impact, which is why we're more comfortable with the height in this location.
I'll move to the vote now. Who's in favour of the recommendation? I'll move approval. Is that seconded? All those in favour of the recommendations to approve? 6. And against? 2 against. Yeah, we'll have a break now because Right, we reconvene now, please, and we'll deal with agenda. You're leaving? All right. Well, leave discreetly. Agenda item 8, the International Wine Centre. And this one is, I think, is it?
It's
Yeah,
my
page 33, Graham again.
myself. Thank you very much, Chair. So, consideration of the report is set out across pages 33 to 52 of the agenda, and the proposal seeks planning permission for the change of use of the existing storage and distribution facility to a film and television studio. Direct notification of 24 adjoining properties occurred, a site notice was posted and press notice issued. 5 representations have been received, and the issues raised are summarised in Appendix 3 of the report. So here is the site in question. It's the International Wine Centre. To the north, you can see just off screen is the B&Q and Aldi. To the south, to the west-southwest is Foxdale Junior School, and then here is the western roundabout mini roundabout linking with Runley Road. Here's the proposed site plan. You can see some of the internal changes that would be occurring here, refurbing the existing building, as well as 1, 2, and 3 portable cabins that would be situated in the frontage of the scheme. Just note here as well, the 2 bus bays that are referred to in the report, one is here and one is here, to be tag team with the parking provision that they also provide. This is the elevation at the far end, at the eastern end of the development. So you can see here in situ the 1, 2, 3 portable cabins. These 2 would be inset within the recessed area that would be just here, with the 3rd in the right-hand corner adjacent to Dello Road. It's a different application. So the principle of development is acceptable given the commercial nature of the use within this Category A employment area. All other elements of the scheme would be ancillary to the predominant use, so the technical training centre, for example. From the outset, the proposed use would offer an equivalent degree of employment. It would also lead to the introduction of a new industry to the borough, which assists in safeguarding and growing the local economy, most specifically this particular employment area. The only significant external alterations would relate to the siting of the 3 portable cabins to the frontage of the existing building. And 2 of these will be situated within the recessed area I just showed, with the 3rd again sat proud of the building. Whilst all 3 would be limited to a period of 2 years, which again has been agreed in writing with the applicant. On that basis, no harm is attributed to the temporary structures. No significant impacts upon the amenities of adjoining occupiers have been identified, and appropriate conditions have been suggested as part of the recommendation to secure that position. The local highways authority has raised no concern and disturbance than the prevailing use with lorries, etc., coming back and forth at ad hoc times throughout the day. So to conclude, the development is considered to be acceptable in respect of each material consideration, and for those reasons, the recommendation before members is for the approval of the application. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. Questions? David? David Franks?
Yeah, I didn't expect to have a question, but Graham, did I hear you say the porter cabins are limited to 2 years because condition 3 says 1 year?
Apologies, Councillor Franks, that must be a typo within the report. It should say 2 years.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's 2 years established. Further questions? Any comments? Councillor Hussain.
Just in you know, I mean, I support that in general, in principle, because at least it'll be less lorries coming into it, because lorries trying to get in and out of there is a major problem, as it was with the 2 premises in the area. So because they're reversing out of there, so I think it will be an improvement. But the area has got a very serious parking problem as it is. So I think any development in that area, I think highways need to be very much monitoring the in terms of in the longer terms. But in general, I think is a better than what it was in his place. So I would support that.
Yeah, I don't think there's going to be any more vehicle movements than there were before. Probably less. Any further questions? Any comments?
Thank you, Chair. Just to clarify, Graham, Councillor Flint, condition 3 then, it says 1st of October 2022, is that not correct? The supporter cabins.
Apologies, let me just double check the report.
Okay. Page 48.
Sorry, apologies, I did misspeak in my presentation. Sorry, it should be 1 year. I can categorically say it's 1 year. Apologies for any confusion.
So condition 3 is correct.
Condition 3 is indeed correct, yes. The report is as reported.
Any further comments? Then we'll move to the recommendation, which is to approve with the conditions. So I'll move approval. That's seconded. Those in favour, please show. Unanimous. On 1/8. Oh, that's approved. Planning permission been granted unanimously. Then we'll go on to 183 Old Bedford Road. Page 13. Neela. Oh, you're with us. You're still with us, Neela.
I'm still with you. Long evening, but I'm still here. Okay, good evening, members. This application relates to 183 Old Bedford Road, and the report is considered at pages 13 to 32 of the committee report. This application is subject to an update, which seeks revisions to the wording of conditions 3 and 4. Neighbours were notified, 8 objections received. Summary of the issues raised by residents is outlined in Appendix 3 of the report. A site notice was also displayed. Okay, the site is a large extended detached property located on the western side of Old Bedford Road, opposite the junction with Elmwood Crescent. The surrounding area is residential in character and consists of similar large detached houses of varying style and size. Proposal is seeking retrospective planning permission for the conversion and change of use of the dwelling house to a large 12-bedroom HMO. The proposal is seeking no external alterations to the building, only internal changes involving internal changes to the layout, which have already been carried out on site. Just show that. And that's the ground and first floor, and this is the first floor and second floor. As discussed, of the site is and in particular the 2016 appeal decision is a material consideration in terms of establishing the principle of the development and the parameters under which this application is to be determined. This appeal decision has been carefully considered within the report. In 2016, a planning application was submitted a 12-bedroom HMO, similar to the current scheme. This planning application was refused by the local planning authority for a number of reasons, including the impact on the character of the area, effect on the amenities of adjoining occupiers, and failure to provide adequate parking. The reasons for refusals outlined in this application are similar to the concerns that have been raised by local residents in relation to the current proposal. The planning refusal was appealed against and the planning inspectorate allowed the appeal. A copy of the appeal decision can be found at Appendix 4 of the report. In terms of the principle of the development, the appeal decision by granting consent establishes the principle of the use of the site as a large 12-bedroom HMO. Furthermore, the current scheme has raised no objection from private sector housing as it complies with the necessary adopted licensing requirements and also the objectives of policy LLP 17. With regards to impact on the character of the area, the current, as stated previously, the current proposal is seeking no external changes, and therefore the scheme would have no impact on the appearance of the street scene. The main concern raised by local residents is the impact of the intensified use on the residential character of the area. As mentioned in the report, the intensified use of the site and its impact on the character of the area was a reason for refusal under the 2016 scheme. However, as discussed in paragraph 24 to 29 of the report, the planning inspector in his assessment disagreed with the local planning authority on this point and considered that owing to the overall plot size, existing screening to the front and side boundaries of the site, that any additional noise and activity associated with the increased occupancy resulting from the proposed changes use would not lead to an unacceptable increase in noise levels and disturbance that would significantly harm the character of the area. He concluded by stating that the development would accord with the requirements of both the old and the emerging local plan, which is now the current adopted local plan. Having regard to the similar nature of the two schemes and the fact that there have been no material change in policy or circumstances on the site since the appeal decision, it would be difficult for the local planning authority, in this case, to consider to sustain a reason for refusal based on the harmful effect of the development on the character of the area. With regards to the effect on the amenities of the adjoining occupiers, as discussed in paragraph 30 to 32 of the report, there is widespread concern from local residents that a large HMO use will have an adverse effect on the amenity of neighbouring residents in terms of additional noise and activity. Whilst these concerns are not unjustified, given that the increased occupancy of the property would naturally give rise to noise and general activity. However, once again, having regard to the planning inspector's findings, which set out in the report that the intensity of use of a 12-bedroom HMO would not give rise to additional noise and disturbance that would significantly harm the neighbouring living conditions, it would be difficult for the LP, local planning authority, to sustain a reason for refusal based on the impact on the amenities of the adjoining occupiers. In terms of the living environment created for the residents, as discussed in paragraph 33 to 38 of the report, the scheme creates an acceptable living environment for the future occupiers of the HMO. With respect to parking, although local residents have raised concerns that the proposal provides inadequate parking, the 6 parking spaces shown on the front driveway are double the number of spaces required for a HMO under the current adopted parking standards outlined in Appendix 2 of the local plan, which require 1 space per 4 rooms. In addition, the council's highway engineer have raised no objections to the scheme. To conclude, whilst the local planning authority does not necessarily consider this development to be a suitable form of development in this location, for the reasons set out in the report and given the 2016 appeal decision, it would be difficult for the local planning authority to justify and sustain a reason for refusal in this instance. And as a result, it is recommended that planning permission be granted for the scheme subject to the conditions outlined in the report. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Neil. Any questions?
Chair, I want a clarification. On Appendix 4, it says that the development hereby permitted shall begin not later than 3 years from the date of this decision. So I just want to know whether the limitation period has finished or not, because to me, if the decision has been made in 11th November 2016, and the limitations period begins from 11th November 2016 and should be finished in 3 years' time, and this is 2021. So I just want to clarify on this point.
Councillor Jacob, that planning permission has expired. The planning permission, which is what you're considering at the moment, the appeal decision is still relevant because it was assessed under the context of the current local plan policies. So when we're assessing this decision, we are referring to the appeal decision because it was determined under the current local plans policies.
So the appeal was allowed previously, and they didn't start the work, and now they applied for
retrospective planning permission.
For a new appeal, yeah.
For a new, they've applied for retrospective planning permission. So basically what it is, the internal layout has been changed and it shows 12 rooms in there. So what they're seeking planning permission under this is for retrospective permission for that use now.
Okay, okay, thank you.
If we agree. Any further questions? Any comments? The recommendation is before you with the two amendments for the further 01 and 02. That's prior to occupation on both of them. The recommendation is to approve. I'll move approval. Is that seconded? All those in favour, please show. 5. Anyone against? And that's carried. Planning permission. Thank you. Oh, yeah, that planning permission has been granted. Okay, thank you very much.